and thanks for joining us today. I'm Carlos Phillips, President and CEO at the Greenville Chamber. We host these community matters discussions every week to connect you with local, state, and national leaders. You can find past recordings as well as the upcoming Community Matters schedule at greenvillechamber.org. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. All attendees should be on mute with your cameras turned off. Also, please submit questions through the chat feature. We have a lot to talk about today, but if there's time at the end, we do want this to be an interactive discussion. Before we get started this morning, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Post and Courier Greenville for their generous sponsorship of this program. I'd like to invite Ryan Gilchrist, Managing Editor at the Post and Courier Greenville, to say a few words and to introduce our speakers. Ryan?
Thank you, Carlos. On behalf of Post and Courier Greenville, the Post and Courier, and Evening Post Industries, I want to thank the Chamber and the business community as a whole for being so welcoming as we get started here in Greenville. We're a South Carolina-based family-owned company. I'm happy to be here with a digital-only news operation located right here on 1 North Main. That's the background in the back. If you want to learn more about us, you can visit us at postandcourier.com/Greenville or find us on both Twitter and Facebook. Just search for Post and Courier Greenville. But really excited to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity to host this morning. Today, we're proud to sponsor this conversation with John Lummus of Upstate Alliance and Mark Farris of GADC for an update regarding economic development in our community. Good morning.
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 Carlos, back to you.
All right, thanks, Ryan, and welcome to Greenville. All right, I've been waiting for this moment for quite some time. The opportunity to sit down with our area's leading economic development partners. So John and Mark, thank you all, and welcome to today's show.
Great to be here. Thanks, Carlos.
Great to be here as well, and thanks for the invitation, Carlos.
My pleasure, my pleasure. John, we're going to start with you this morning. I believe, well, you don't have slides. I understand that you're going to spend a few moments just giving us an update on what's going on with Upstate Alliance.
Okay, thank you again. Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about our role and our mission, and then kind of what we've been seeing in this very unusual year. But the Upstate Alliance, we are a public-private partnership. We are the regional economic development group for the upstate 10 counties of South Carolina, of which, of course, Greenville is one. We've been around for a little bit over 20 years, just are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. We are a public-private partnership, so we work very closely with the 10 counties and 9 cities in our region. And what we try to do is go out and find leads and prospects for mainly manufacturing, but other business areas as well, and then transfer those to our local developers, like Mark, who's going to talk more about what their role is today. But our role is that marketing of ourselves outside the region, and then talking to businesses that could be interested in coming to the region. We also have a big research component over here. We assist our local governments and our private sector members. We have about 200 private sector members who contribute to our organization, and those are groups that are interested in economic development and interested in pushing the upstate forward. So we like to talk about ourselves as that one marketing group that really pushes the entire upstate and all the great things that we have here, so people can get recognition and start looking at what we're doing. We've also started working, and I'm going to talk about this a little more later, on an initiative with talent attraction called Move Up, and we're trying to get more people interested in this area. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But what we're seeing this year, it has been a very interesting year. January and February started out well, and a lot of activity, and then around the middle part of March, our activity started going down a little bit, but surprisingly, it has not been as much as people may have thought. And I think South Carolina's economy has continued to operate in a lot of ways. Our manufacturers stayed in business during the COVID-19. Our manufacturers did a really good job in making sure the workforce was safe. A lot of our commercial businesses have opened up earlier than some of our surrounding states and areas. And I think we can give a lot of credit to the really good government business relationships that we have here in the upstate and throughout the state. And I think the governor's office and our South Carolina Department of Commerce has done an excellent job in making sure that South Carolina stayed open to the extent that we could to be safe. And I think that's been a very important thing. But in regard to project activity, our activity has been off, but again, not near as much as we thought. We are still working a number of active leads. We've been having visits, sending out what we call RFIs, requests for information, in a lot of areas. I think life sciences and PPE manufacturing has been a real high point for us, obviously. And then food and beverage has been active. And then really a lot of general manufacturing projects that have seen opportunities. And then companies in distribution that see opportunities to expand into our area and shore up some of their supply chains that were affected by the coronavirus. But again, I think that what I see is a very positive thing about the upstate of South Carolina and South Carolina as a whole. I think that as we start to come out of the coronavirus situation, I think South Carolina is going to be in a really good position to do better than a lot of the other areas around the country. After the economic downturn back in 2009, 2010, our area rebounded more quickly than almost any area in the country. And one of our counties actually was the quickest rebounding county of any east of the Mississippi. So I think that's what we've got going for us. We've had to change a little bit in the way that we recruit business, because what we do is a relationship business. It's about going to Detroit or Germany or wherever and sitting down face to face with a company and talking with them about why they should consider the upstate of South Carolina. I think what we found during this process is that we have to use Zoom. We have to use a lot of other methods to stay in front of people, but still, this is a relationship business and people have to actually visit, stand on a piece of property, I think, in order to make that final decision. So until we can start doing that again, things aren't going to be back to the level that they were. But I think once we're able to open up, we're going to be out ahead of a lot of people. And I think things are going to be good in 2021, at least by the middle part of moving forward. So.
Good. John, thanks for sharing that overview. Your organization's relationship with the upstate is really pretty unique from an economic development perspective. You're the Switzerland of economic development for the upstate. You don't tell businesses where to go, do you?
No, our model is we market the upstate, and then as companies start looking, once they narrow it down to say Greenville and Anderson and Pickens, we turn that lead over to our local economic developers, and they're the ones that work the projects and really, move things from there. So we're like the business development person. We are the person that goes out and finds that lead and then turns it over. And I think that our model has worked very well because we have incredible local economic developers. I mean, we got Mark Farris here, who has been in this business. I don't know if I should say how many years, but somewhere around 33, I believe. And he's one of the best economic developers, in South Carolina for sure, and probably in the whole country.
Mark started when he was 5 years old.
He did. He was 5 years old. And so we have 10 incredible economic developers at the county level. And we also have incredible economic developers at our city levels that know how to get these deals done. So we all have our role. And I think that we stay within those boundaries, as well as with the Greenville Chamber. I mean, I think that the relationship between the Upstate Alliance, the Greenville Chamber, the GADC, is excellent in that we all support one mission, and that's to grow the economy in the upstate and in Greenville County.
Well, thank you, John, and I appreciate that segue to the highly esteemed Mark Farris with GA DC. I'm amazed, Mark, that you started this wonderful journey at 5 years. At 5 years old, you haven't even hit 40 years old yet, and you're still chalking up wonderful results for Greenville County. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm plenty old, but thank you, Carlos. I have the scars to prove it. But thanks for having me today. You know, one of the things that I think we're most excited about here at GADC is the partnership that John mentioned. You know, I've worked in other communities where you didn't have that level of cooperation in between the chamber adding real value, the Upstate Alliance generating leads for us, and then, you know, us and the municipalities working to bring those companies home. It works pretty well, and a lot of communities can't say that. So I want to reiterate that that level of cooperation that is relatively unique in economic development. But thanks. Of course, the Greenville Area Development Corporation is the entity that works directly with companies and trying to work not only with new companies interested in operations here in Greenville, but existing industries. Last year, we had a pretty big year in terms of investment. We had over 400 million announced investment in 2,200 new jobs. This year won't be that case, but I thought it would be something that we could compare, and I brought with me a few slides to talk about that. Andrew, I'm sorry, if you could go back one slide. Thanks. So a lot of times we're asked, well, how has the pandemic affected the prospect load and the kinds of businesses that we're seeing? And of course, if you compare us this time this year, which are the solid lines on the graph here left, and then the dotted lines for 2019, we're below, certainly. And if you look at the number of contacts, certainly that we average over the years. Okay, thanks. This has been a slower year. We're down about 30%. But if you look at the contacts on the right, you can see that, as John mentioned, January was a pretty good month for us in terms of contacts and visits. Began to slide in February, and then by April we had 0 companies who were willing to risk actually traveling to visit us. A lot of stuff has been done and is being done virtually yet, but it's picked up, and we've had several visits from companies here. You know, we end up driving separate cars. We end up doing a lot of stuff virtually. We socially distance in our boardroom, but there's no substitute for having the company officials in to see how special Greenville is. That's part of our job, of course, is to let them experience a sense of place that Greenville's created, and that certainly helps us in terms of being successful with those companies. But moving forward, Andrew, so these are the announcements since January. We've had 11 total, 93 million in capital investment, 635 jobs. Again, that's relatively low compared to the prior couple of years. But as John mentioned, I think we all thought that that we were going to drop off the cliff, and we certainly have not. We do see companies, we do see investments. I happen to believe that it's the companies that have that foresight to take advantage of, you know, whether it be lower construction prices or, you know, something that's a function of the pandemic, and make that investment and continue forward for maximum value, because it is going to turn, you know, when that level of confidence is restored, when we have the benchmark, whether that's a virus, cure, or a vaccine, regardless, I think once that's established, that confidence is restored, we'll have a rush of projects looking to get into our market. But still and yet, halfway through the year, it's not as bad as we thought. And next, Andrew. So this is just, well, I get asked a lot of times, what type of businesses that we're seeing. Greenville in the upstate in general is a manufacturing location. We build things very well. We add value, and that manufacturing and distribution is continuing to be our biggest type of prospect that we see. The office environment, however, has picked up for us significantly. A couple of years ago, that number would have been half of 27%, but we're starting to see a lot more office projects, a lot of innovation technology companies, and we're excited about that because that represents a diversification in Greenville and an evolution of our business economy. So that's a good sign. Targeted industries, our targets include advanced materials, automotive, aviation, corporate headquarters. Almost half of our projects are in that targeted industry sector. Next, Andrew. So one of the things I wanted to bring you up to speed on was some of our initiatives. After a 3-year process, we were successful in creating or helping to create Greenville's first new business park in 20 years. Fox Hill Business Park. This is the most recent drone footage we have showing the development. This is a site, 180 acres near the intersection of 385 and 418 or Millicon Drive. You can actually see 418 on your left there. That is the pad that fronts the road is the first building pad. The thing that's shining is a water retention pond. This is a large area. And we certainly need that stormwater retention and detention as part of the plan. And you can see about a third of the site here has been cleared and graded. And we're excited about this park. It is going to be a Class A business park, great attention to detail. You'll see some design standards in this park that we don't have in Greenville, and so we're excited to have the Sudler Group as a partner in this process. They are developing the buildings. They will own and lease these structures. The first one is 200,000 square feet. And so it's always cool, at least I think it's cool, to see these kind of things in progress. We tend to not pay attention sometimes to the process, and I think it's cool to see the kind of work and activity that goes into the development of these. But the park is, again, like I say, our first business park in 20 years here in Greenville. And the great thing about this is the buildings will be built. I talk about this a lot. About 5 years ago in Greenville, we had no new spec buildings here. 70% of the companies that visit us look first for existing buildings. We had none. To this point, we've had several constructed in the last couple of years. We have 5 in the works, including this one here that you see. So having available speculative buildings, contemporary buildings, is critically important to our success. And we're really excited that the Sudlers have come to Greenville and are partnering with us to create that. That's great, Andrew. We probably don't need to see the rest of it, but it's a good indication of the kind of activity that's occurring on that site already.
Mark, thank you for sharing that video on that development, and good to know that we have other sites positioned for spec buildings as well. That's very important.
Absolutely.
Please continue with your.
So just real quickly, I'll run through this. We were fortunate enough to be provided 600 non-contact thermometers. We still have about 50 left. If anybody wants one, just please let us know. Let Debbie in our office know. We'll be glad to get you one or a couple. We were certainly appreciative of having these to be able to provide our manufacturing, distribution, office projects. A lot of companies, smaller companies especially, were appreciative. Some of the larger ones were concerned about liability, but we still have over 50 left. And if you're interested, just please contact us at the office. Next, Andrew. So we are doing our strategic plan update, which is really timely for us. The RFQ is being finalized, and we're going to distribute that to potential vendors next month. I talked about the spec buildings. We also have South Greenville Enterprise Park, and another development that's been on the books for a while. We have our first project there, Vermeer, a 250,000 square foot building, $20 million investment, and 40 new jobs with this company that makes directional boring equipment. Next. And just quickly, I wanted to update on some of the effects of the pandemic. These are the layoffs provided to us by the Appalachian Council of Governments. You see us at Greenville County. We were very fortunate. We had relatively few layoffs compared to certainly our workforce. Spartanburg County, unfortunately, had about 1,400. No surprise there. That's the BMW facility, and that's a lot of temporary employees were lost there. But they've already started bringing those folks back. So it just is a comparison of how John mentioned, our area hadn't been hit as hard as some, and this information was as of mid-July. So next slide. Unemployment claims, certainly the peak in April is declining in terms of the claims on a weekly basis. So that's a good sign. Folks are getting back to work, and those unemployment claims keep going down every week. And then finally, I'll leave you with a little bit of good news for our next announcement. We've got something scheduled for September 9th. It's a pretty significant company that's going to be coming to Greenville, a type of industry that we have worked on, try to attract here for decades. This will be the first one, and of that type. Hopefully we'll see many more. I'm sorry to tease you on this, but can't make it public until the 9th. But please, if anybody's interested in joining us for this will be a virtual meeting. Just let us know at the office. And thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Mark. And who would we tell, Mark?
Your closest friend?
I mean, we've got about 75 secret keepers on this call. We wouldn't tell anyone. You're safe here. Thank you for that update. I have a question for you and John. How has your recruitment strategy changed during the pandemic? Did you have target sectors, target markets prior to the pandemic that you've now adjusted as a result of the new world that we're living in?
Mark, you want me to go first?
Sure. Yeah, certainly, Carlos. It's interesting if you look at some of the traditional kinds of industries that we see, the general manufacturing, of course, but specifically food production. I think there was a lot of concern about not having regional food networks in place, especially for some of the larger companies. And so we have seen coming through brokers and consultants, at least 3 of these projects. So that's something that we really don't have a lot of here. That's a Midwest kind of thing that you see most often in and around Chicago and the Midwest area. We're seeing more and more of that, so it's definitely prompted an opportunity there. John mentioned PPE, biopharma. That's really picked up lately. We're seeing a lot of that kind of company. We're starting to see more distribution operations, 3PLs. I think there was a definite flaw in the supply chain that was discovered with COVID, and so we're seeing a lot more of those. But so yes, we certainly are targeting those, Carlos. We're looking closer at those kinds of companies because we see that as an opportunity for Greenville.
And I would mirror a lot of that with our strategy. I mean, we have put a strong press on food and beverage. We've sent out a lot of information, mailers, as old-fashioned as that sounds in these days of everything virtual. We've sent out a lot of mailers here over the last couple of months to both site consultants and directly to companies in the food and beverage industry. And also we target a lot of the PPE companies and the pharma companies. So another thing that we've done is we've directed more of our recruiting towards domestic companies, particularly Florida, Northeast, California, because right now international, it's so uncertain what's going on. We're keeping our connections with our international consulates and our site consultants and things of that nature, and others that help us overseas, particularly in Europe. But I think having a domestic focus right now is going to be probably the better play, because those folks are going to travel quicker. We're going to be able to travel with them quicker, and with uncertainty in international supply chains, it just makes more sense. So that's what we're seeing, and that's where we're getting looks. I mean, automotive and aerospace have been slowed to some extent over the last 6 months. I think that's something that is going to ramp back up, but we're haven't seen quite as much of that. But the one thing about a lot of these PPE projects, there are a lot that are out there looking around, but I'm not sure how many of those are actually going to end up being here long term, because a lot of what they make are products that are more, textile products and things of that nature that have been made overseas because they cannot be made profitably here in the U.S. So we're having to look at those and see the ones that could have a long-term existence here, as opposed to ones that could just be more short-term. So that's one that is sort of a two-sided coin. Everybody's been talking about, we're going to recruit all these PPE manufacturers, but we've got to actually look at what their long-term viability is.
Good. Thanks for that update, fellows. I continue to be amazed at the work you're doing and how you continue to fill your respective pipelines during this pandemic. That's very comforting. I want to take a moment to encourage our attendees. If you have questions, please submit them via the chat feature. We'd love to hear from you. So please submit any questions that you may have. I now want to ask Anna Mitchell with the Post and Courier Greenville to ask a question. Anna, are you ready for your question?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, a lot of my questions got answered, actually. Great presentation, folks. But I was interested in hearing more about the Fox Hill Business Park, and kind of if y'all could put that in perspective for me, because I heard a lot about the South Greenville Enterprise Park in the last couple of years, and that seemed like a really enormous project. And I'm wondering how Fox Hill compares to that, and if you've gotten any more prospects for the South Greenville Park.
Yeah, Anna, we certainly have had continued interest. Of course, that first track that sold last year to Vermeer was a project that took us about 3 years. The South Greenville Enterprise Park area is certainly a great asset for us, and has been on our radar screen for quite a while. The biggest issue has been sewer service, but we were thankfully able to work with our providers. We got some grant funds to help with the provision of the sewer. And once that sewer line is in place, then that opened up a lot of property. So once Vermeer made the decision to go there, we were able to qualify for some grant funds and work with our suppliers to put the line in, which opened up other sites. So yes, we'll definitely see more development out there. I think that the comparison between that, for example, and Fox Hill, will be that the South Greenville Enterprise Park doesn't have the design standards. Certainly it's a very functional, practical place, and we're excited that we have it. But Fox Hill represents a more upscale kind of location, in the sense that the appointments, the details, the roll curb and guttering, the signage, the sense of place that they're trying to create out there, something that we've needed, something that companies have asked for, and that we've not been able to provide. So I think that represents a step up in terms of our inventory of being able to offer an industrial park with those kind of amenities and appointments.
Is that inside a city limits somewhere, or is that out in the county?
That is in the city of, yes, Fountain Inn. It was incorporated last year.
Very good. Okay.
All
I
right.
had actually kind of a follow-up question. You know, a lot of the jobs that were lost were in the temp kind of realm of things. And when you look at the biggest employers for Greenville County, a lot of it is temp agencies are the biggest employers. Does that cause you concern about the overall health of our employment base?
No, I think that that's always been the case, Anna. In fact, if you look back decades, you'd find that. I don't think that's a contemporary trend. A lot of companies prefer contract labor, especially for operations they're either getting started or that they're trying to incorporate into their process. So certainly, unfortunately, sometimes those are the first to go. And I think we saw that maybe at the BMW facility, but that I don't think that trend's gonna end. A lot of companies are attempt to hire. For example, they're with a temporary company and they're trained, and then they're offered permanent employment down the road. So that's just a strategy that some companies employ. I don't see it really any different. I did want to point out that one of the great things that we had going for us was our momentum. And John mentioned the downturn, automotive and aviation. Certainly that's the case. But we do have the F-16 being made now in Greenville. And that is a huge project for us in terms of upside. I don't know if you saw the announcement, but there are more and more orders of that aircraft are in the works. And so that's going to have an impact on us. That's going to create opportunities in the aviation industry that we hadn't had before. So I did want to point that out, is that momentum that we established in the prior couple of years is going to help us through the rough spot.
Thank you, Mark, for that response. And Anna, thank you for those questions. I have a question in the chat feature that's directed to John. John, can you tell us a little bit about the Move Up initiative that the Upstate Alliance has been engaged in for the past couple of years?
Yes, thank you, Carlos. Move Up is a talent initiative that we kicked off in April of 2019 in partnership with the Greenville Chamber, Anderson, Spartanburg Chambers, and 10 at the top. And basically what we were trying to do there is to attract talent to our region, because at that time, unemployment in April of 2019, unemployment was maybe 3 or 4%. By January and February of 2020, unemployment was around 2% and lower in Greenville and Spartanburg and Anderson counties. So we're really trying to target people we started with 10 geographies around the country, in places like New York City and Los Angeles, where we wanted to let people know that the upstate of South Carolina was a great place to be, and that they should move here and take a job. So the way that we did that is we talked about quality of life, we talked about job opportunities, and then connecting the two through the website and through an Indeed search engine. Well, starting about March the 1st, unemployment rates started rising, and they got in some parts of the upstate north of 15%. So we started looking at, and they still have not rebounded. So we started looking at how can we make an impact on people internal to the region who we really prefer to take the open jobs, as opposed to people from outside the region coming in and doing that, which was our initial strategy. So we've started an initiative called Skill Up. And what that is going to do is connect people with existing job opportunities within the region with training opportunities. So for example, if someone's been a temporary worker somewhere and lost their job during the COVID-19 crisis, they could look at Greenville Tech, Tri-County Tech, Spartanburg Community College, Piedmont Tech for opportunities. And what this website does, it makes it very simple for someone who's looking for a new job, a new career, to be connected with training opportunities, which would then connect them with existing jobs, which still has the search engine, still has all those features. So what we're again trying to do with the Move Up initiative is get people connected with jobs and help our upstate employers and help people that are here. So I think that moving forward, that's going to be what we'll do with this initiative, at least over the next 6 months to a year. And then as the unemployment rate goes back down to 2%, as we're very hopeful for, we'll start trying to attract talent.
Thanks for sharing that update. That is a significant initiative, Move Up and Skill Up as well. And that Skill Up initiative will be very important as we've had several, we've had much of our workforce displaced because of the pandemic, and it'll be important to make sure that they are skilled and prepared for their next careers. So thank you for leading that initiative.
Well, thanks to you know, the chambers, all of our local economic development offices, JDC and others have been, you know, involved in providing tons of information for this. And I think it's really been a regional push, and, you know, hopefully it will help a lot of folks here find jobs.
I think it will. Thank you, John. So as we conclude today, it appears from all indicators that Greenville and the Upstate is trending in the right direction, which leaves me very excited and hopeful about our future. If you had a message of hope to share with our attendees today, what would that message be?
I used to, Carlos, have a coach who used to say, you can't have a breakthrough without a breakdown. I don't know whether he was right or not, but I think his point was that, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, all that stuff. And I think that's going to happen. I think, you know, the companies, especially that are surviving, some are thriving, but I think we'll, as a community, become stronger after having gone through this. I think, you know, we'll meet the challenge, and you know, we'll be able to apply lessons learned, and it'll make us a more viable economic engine going forward. So I'm certainly, you know, optimistic that try not to be too Pollyannish about it, but I think there's definitely an upside. You know, the stock market certainly thinks so. So that's been an amazing indication, I think, of how solid the basic finances are. So I just think that, again, like your survey indicated, once that confidence is restored, that, you know, we're gonna be back to a pretty advanced growth pattern.
And I agree with Mark there, and I echo that as well. I mean, if you look at the history of South Carolina, we have constantly had different challenges, and our economy has always rebounded. Like what I was saying before, you know, after the downturn in 2009, 2010, we rebounded incredibly, and we've had our probably strongest run of economic development over the last decade that we maybe had ever. At least the numbers would indicate that. And I think that we're going to continue to see that. And going back to what I said about how our state has responded during the COVID-19, you know, our manufacturers have stayed incredibly up to speed. Our commercial businesses, our unemployment, while it has been high, a lot of people have lost their jobs, a lot of people have suffered. It has not been as high as some of our other states in our region. And I think that we have set ourselves up after this, I guess we can call it a pause, to really come out going full force. And I really feel that way. And I think that our economy is going to even be better in the decade of the 20s than it was in the 10s. So, and we look at where we're located, okay? Halfway between Atlanta and Charlotte, halfway between Miami and New York. We're in the center of the East Coast. We are connected with infrastructure from the Port of Charleston, the inland port, GSP airport. I mean, you go on and on and on. What our assets are, there's really no way we can't grow and prosper. So, you know, that's how I feel every day, is it's just going to be better. So
good. Thanks for sharing those thoughts with our attendees. Hey, Mark, when I played college football, I seemed to be injury prone. And I had a coach, you know, his words of inspiration for me were, Carlos, you can't help the club from the tub. And it's clear, though, you and John are not in the tub. You're out there, you're making things happen. And you're in the game, and you're making a difference for Greenville and for the upstate. I, for one, and I know everyone that's on this call today, appreciate everything that you and your teams are doing. I am hopeful, and I am actually quite confident that we're going to emerge from this pandemic much stronger and much better than when we entered it. And that will be due in large part to the work that you all are doing. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your partnership, Carlos.
Oh man, it is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. I think we make a pretty daggone good team. I want to thank.
No, I was going to say there are a couple of questions on chat. Do you want us to pick those up, or are we at the end of time?
I tell you what, we may have to take those questions and send the answers, send those out to you following today's meeting. Okay. My producer's in my ear, and he's telling me that we're out of time. Okay. All right. But again, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for everyone who attended today. There were so many other things that you could have done with your time this morning. We appreciate you spending it with us. A recording of today's session will be shared on the Greenville Chamber's website and sent to attendees along with a survey. Please complete the survey. We want to hear your thoughts and your feedback because it does inform our future programming. So thanks in advance for completing that survey. Don't forget that this is part of an ongoing series. Next week, we will speak with Greenville County officials on the CARES Act funding for small, minority, and women-owned businesses and how to apply for and receive those funds. That was $75 million, and there's a lot of it still left. Let's not leave found money on the sidewalk, and tune in next week to learn more about that. We take time at the end of every call to remind everyone, please do your part in helping to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Remember, mask, wash, and distance. It's those three behaviors will be pretty good at not only flattening the curve, but reversing the trend that we currently see. And with that, we're going to sign off for today's Community Matters. Thank you again for joining. Please stay positive and test negative. Have a great week.